Welcome again to the Ref Show from youartheref.com. We have the two Deans this week, doubling up, Brian Deane and Dean Mohareb, our refereeing expert. Welcome to the studio, guys. I think we're going to kick off by talking about penalties and when a referee is conned and when he's not conned. We saw instances of both over the weekend in the Premier League, but we also saw some extraordinary incidents as well, one in the lower league at Leyton Orient, and we also go down under as well for a major talking point from Australia, with video referees in mind, which we think is the utopia, but might not be. Let's start with the big game referee, and Michael Oliver. I've seen and heard nothing but praise for his performance in Spurs 2, Arsenal 0. Let's acknowledge that first of all.
Outstanding refereeing from Michael. He's had a little bit of an indifferent season at times, a couple of incidents I think he's got wrong throughout the season, but he's in my opinion our most promising referee. Him and Anthony Taylor sort of lead the way, and he had an excellent game on at weekend. You
saw his constant dialogue with players in that game. I watched most of it on TV, and the players seem to be responding to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, players like a little bit of interaction. I think the problem you get is when referees are a little bit aloof and unapproachable. It's always, you do like to interact with the referee and even question him. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No. Good penalty call for Spurs' second goal in particular there. The TV commentators took a long look 2 or 3 times before actually saying, well, yeah, he got that one right. And he just paused. He just gave himself a half second there, didn't he?
He did. And I know we'll come on to the other incidents shortly, but I think the difference with Michael is he gave himself enough thinking time, but not too much, which we saw in one of the other incidents. Yeah. And he also got himself in the right position. So he created an angle, came left, and made sure that he had a really good view of the incident. And I think it was a really good call, because at fast speed it's always difficult. It happens that quickly. We'll talk about the other incidents later, but I thought he got it absolutely spot on with Harry Kane. There was a penalty.
You mentioned taking too long over a call, and we go on to Neil Swarbrick with the Old Trafford game. Manchester United 1, Swansea 1. Now, just give me a word or two about Marcus Rashford and what he did, Brian.
Well, quite simply, he's knocked the ball past the goalkeeper, and then he's actually run into him to try to make contact. For me, it's happening far too much now. It's something that's become part of our game, and it's frustrating. I think it's certainly frustrating for referees who, their job's hard enough anyway, and then we've got people who are becoming experts at this now, and they're young ones as well.
I've heard it be extolled by some people in football, saying, we've got to be more clever like the Continentals are at inducing contact. And if you do, it's a legitimate penalty kind of thing. It can't be, can it?
Well, it goes against the whole, sporting ethic for me. Sport is about fair play. And the stakes are high now. So perhaps, tweaking of the rules a little bit is seen as something that can, bring that advantage. But, for me, it's cheating. Simple as that.
Okay, so...
I didn't think it was that clever, to be honest. I thought in real time it looked as though he'd dived.
Well, he got a penalty, didn't he?
He got the penalty because I think the referee ultimately wasn't in a great position. He took a long time. I don't know if there's been any input with the assistant. But we've got to learn lessons from Scotland on this. This should go to a video review tomorrow, and Rashford should be suspended, because ultimately it's simulation. And the correct call on the day should have been an indirect free kick. So Swansea and a caution.
So how many games do you reckon will eradicate it? Because I think 2 games.
In terms of a suspension, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure you'll ever eradicate it, Brian. But I think you've got to send the message out that winning, and it doesn't help the team on the day. It wouldn't help Swansea. But I think you've got to have some type of retrospective punishment for it, because otherwise, as Brian says, it's becoming more prevalent.
It would stamp it out. But we'd be flying in the face of football generally across the continent if we did that. I'd love to see it. And the Scotland system's great, wouldn't it?
Not now. With video review now, they're introducing technology more and more. And when that comes in, there'll be incidents we can have a look at. But Scotland have led the way on this, and I think it's a really good system that retrospectively players who commit clear acts of simulation. Rashford did that. He should be suspended.
And it needs 1 or 2 high-profile ones to really sink in, drive the message home, and create the right deterrence. Okay, that was Neil Swarbrick's game. Glenn Turner blogging that game on RefCam felt that it was a game that Swarbrick should just have sailed through. You know, that it was calm game and should have, but for that huge incident, he would have been praised. Another one was in Kevin Friend's game, Middlesbrough 2, Manchester City 2. And again, we have an incident here where, well, Leroy Sané duped the referee into giving a penalty to City.
Yeah, see, this was one where I just think on this one, just give the restart, whatever the restart was. I think it was a goal kick. I didn't actually think this was simulation, but Sané, it definitely wasn't a penalty either. And again, we've got the same situation with the Man United game where the referee's positioning, he's too central, he's got players in front of him, and the lesson to be learned with Michael Oliver is actually create that angle, so it gives you the best possible chance. But as Brian says, you know, these incidents are becoming more prevalent, and the only way to eradicate simulation, if you like, is to have, suspensions, in my opinion.
The only issue for me is that, you know, if you look at Rashford, you look at Sané, those are two top talented guys, and what you have to balance it off with is the fact that, you know, defenders are looking to stop these guys at any cost. So I suppose you have to balance that off by saying that perhaps they have to get that in their locker and say, well, you know, we're getting pulled in the box, you know, we're getting blocked. You know, if we're travelling at speed and changing direction, you know, surely, you know, we have to have the advantage of our talent, you know.
Yeah, it's a fine
to be fair on this one, though, the defender never moved.
Right.
He didn't move. Sané went straight into him, and
he did.
And sort of leading on from that very quickly. What disappointed me is the reaction. Middlesbrough were hard done to, don't get me wrong, but the reaction of the players towards Kevin Friend. I mean, I think it was Raphael had to be dragged away by his captain. Yeah. And again, you know, where is he was cautioned. He should have been sent off.
This is unacceptable. Yeah. We saw this with Arsenal protesting about that perfectly legitimate penalty that was given against them at Tottenham, and yet it was like four players in the referee's face.
You know, the funny thing about all of this is that the referee's never going to change his mind for all the challenging. So as a player, you might as well just get on with it. It's done. Maybe you give the referee a chance to reflect on what's happened.
Yeah.
You know, instead of hardening his view.
Well, whenever we get these incidents now, and they're inevitably going to crop up every weekend, up goes the call again for video referees. Now, it is coming, but it's not the answer to everything. Not in its current format, it would seem. There's some confusion as to how it's going to be applied here, as opposed to how it's being applied across the world already in some cases. Now, if we go to Australia, this was a league semi-final game refereed by Peter Green. It was Sydney against Perth Glory. Just look it up on YouTube if you get an opportunity. It was an absolute shambles of a situation where Sydney scored a goal which was correctly disallowed on a linesman's call because he'd seen an offside player interfering and blocking out an opponent. A correct call was overturned by the video assistant referee.
It was an excellent call because at fast motion, you think he's flagged too quick. Why is he flagged? When you see the replay, the player who's offside just steps across and blocks off the defender. It is a fantastic call from the assistant referee. And then they've gone to video review after play's restarted, which is against the principle of it. When they've reviewed the video, they've then given the goal. So they've come up with the incorrect decision. The officials called it right first time, and I think this is where, you know, assistant refereeing is such a difficult job. I don't know who reviewed that, but it's got to be an assistant referee, not a referee, because assistant referees are dealing with offside week in, week out, and it was clearly offside.
You're only as good as your video referee, and if he's not up to the job, then you've got problems, Brian.
Wow, sounds as though they're just making it up as they go along, isn't it?
It's a shambles, really.
This is the problem, though, with bringing technology in, because when you bring it in for goal line decisions, it's black and white. The ball has either crossed the line or it hasn't. When you start introducing it for penalties, sending offs, you know, you're talking about somebody's opinion. Your opinion could be different to mine.
Yeah.
So, and having a screen at the side of the pitch, I mean, you've got to be having a laugh.
A work in progress. Just finally, in part one of the ref show, you were talking about dissent. We've all talked about dissent earlier. This was in Chelsea's 3-0 win at Everton. Another satisfactory performance from John Moss, summed up Guy Beale on RefCam, apart from one thing that he picked him up on, Chelsea's Azpilicueta got away apparently with a show of dissent where Guy felt a second yellow card was called for. Would have been sent off. What do you think?
I think at the start of the season we had this sort of programme to eliminate dissent, and that's certainly been watered down as the season's gone on. And I actually think players knew where they stood at the start of the season. So
but
I don't think that's necessarily John Moss. I think it's the whole group. So.
Yeah, it's all crept back in. Yeah. Okay, in part two, Leyton Orient, the goings on there, rather clever from the referee in that instance, Carl Boyson. Some goings on again in Scotland, and the rest of the Premier League roundup and the Championship. Do rejoin us.